Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Performance Analytics and Reporting Office Hours. We're glad that you're able to join us for this session. We do this session every 2 weeks, so we'll be doing this again on July 3rd. For those of you who are new, welcome, and for those of you who have joined us before, welcome back. We appreciate you coming. I'm Adam Stout, an outbound product manager for Performance Analytics and Reporting. Before we get started, I'm going to run through a couple logistical items for today's session. So today, the first thing, most important, this session is for you. This is your opportunity to get some fresh ideas, gain a better understanding of performance analytics, and get some practical advice from some of the world's experts in the field. There may be cases where we can't solve your technical issues or go into details in your instance. So we may ask you to open up a case on high, or we may need to follow up offline so we can cover as many questions as possible during this session, and we don't get into too many details, especially some of the technical. Second, we have many people on the line, so if you don't mind, please keep yourself on mute unless you're asking a question. We will open up the floor for questions a little bit later, but until then, please keep yourself on mute. And then third, please feel free to ask questions via Zoom's text chat if you prefer, instead of asking over the phone. We ask that we may ask you some follow-up questions to clarify, so we ensure that we're answering your question appropriately. And please make sure to address the chat to everyone, not just the speaker. We have several experts on the call today, and addressing your questions to everyone will make sure we can get those answered as quickly and as thoroughly as possible. Most important, this session is being recorded. If you or your organization is not comfortable with that, please disconnect now. This is being recorded so that we can post it to YouTube after the session. You'll be able to find the link to this session along with all the previous office hour sessions on our YouTube channel, which you can get to from the page that you registered for this event. All right, now that we got that out of the way, today we have the amazing Isaac demoing some advanced metrics for us. This will help you solve some otherwise difficult questions pretty easily. If you haven't seen this before, make sure you pay close attention. You'll want to go back to the recording. This is some really great stuff built into the platform. Once we get done with the demo, we're going to open up the floor for questions. And again, whether you want to come off mute and ask the questions or go through chat, whichever you prefer is fine. But now we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'll hand it over to Isaac.
Yes, hello, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. I'm Isaac. I'm joining every 2 weeks here with you. I hope we are addressing your questions. And as Adam mentioned earlier, we are today I'm going to present a bit of metrics and how you can configure metrics so that you can pick up the data that you actually need from your incident table, for example, as we're going to demonstrate today. This was a question that came in the previous session of office hours. I answered it offline to one of you, and because I received multiple feedback for similar use cases, I thought it would be interesting to demonstrate how to do it. And yeah, of course, if you have questions, as Adam mentioned, you are free to unmute yourself or write it in the chat. Of course, you can ask questions while I'm presenting if something is unclear, and then we can take it forward from there. So, metrics, as we discussed in the previous session as well, metrics is a way that it's a functionality that our platform provides so that you can capture the duration of a field value on a table and out of the box that is limited on the table that extend task. Okay, and that is fairly simple. Okay, because the only thing you have to do is just navigate to metrics definitions, and out of the box you will see that we have quite a lot of them, which can be as simple as the state field, for example, the incident state field on the incident table, which is the only thing you have to do is just specify the table, the field you want to capture, that it's a timeline, and that you want to keep the field value duration. And as you can see, whenever you change the field value in one of the records on the incident table, we capture the value of the state when it started it ended or not, and the duration. Okay, these are fairly simple, but there are more advanced questions or things that you can do. So last week I was requested to create something, so they would like to capture the duration between, not the duration, how many times actually an incident was moved from urgency low to high or from high to low. Okay, so this is because the field that we are talking about, the urgency field, that's a state field, and you can change states, or you can change the value of urgency as many times as you can, but apparently you do realize the business requirement is, well, if something moved from low to high or vice versa, from high to low, so there is something that went wrong into the process, and why didn't the engineers that actually picked up the incident, they didn't understand the urgency or not. Yeah, I see there are some comments. Can't you see my screen? Okay. Okay, if the rest can see me, I suppose. Okay, it might be. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, and sorry for the interruption. Okay, okay. So the use case was pretty simple. So we want to know who actually changed the urgency from low to high in this case. So this is what I'm going to demonstrate, and we want to keep the name of the user and the sysID of the user, so that we'll be able to pick up the rest of the information to understand where this user came from. So what I did in this case, I created a scripted metric definition, and the reason why it's scripted is because as you can see, there are three urgency choices out of the box. It's low, medium, and high, but we want to capture only when it moves from low to high in this case. Okay, you don't care if it went from low to medium and then from medium to high, because that might be okay, but moving from low to high is something, it's a bit of an action that seems that the urgency changed because of a reason. Either the customer actually escalated it and wanted to become urgent, or maybe when the incident was raised was not, yeah, it was not filled correctly, the field. The engineer didn't actually understand the urgency of it. So how I did it. Okay, so first of all, this is the sysupdated by. This is the field that we provide out of the box, which actually stores the user that performed an update on the record. Okay, and the metrics, as we mentioned earlier, they are being calculated every time you change the field, and the field in this case is urgency, right? So if I change the field urgency on the incident table, that will trigger the execution of the script. Okay, then we have here the two variables that will keep the sysID of the user and the display name of the user. Of course, if you don't want these fields, you can specify any field that you want. You might not want the display name, you might want the username. Depending on the requirements and your business use case, you can change these fields. And next is a function that actually picks up this value with a script from the sys user table. So it goes to sys user and it provides these two different values, okay? And the last thing that you actually need to do before going into the logic of your metric is to define which are the conditions that you should create a metric, right? Which is, in this case, is that your urgency is low, and which are the conditions that that metric needs to close, and that is when your urgency becomes high. So in between, there shouldn't be any other change, right? And this logic of is in this small function here, here. So what it does is, first of all, whenever the function is being calculated, we are checking if there is already a metric on the instance. So I'll explain to you how it actually works. I'll create an incident. I'll assign it to this will be a test. Okay, so the moment we save the initial record, as you can see, the urgency is low. There is a related list at the bottom of the screen, which will give you actually the sysID and the name of the user that performed the change. As you can see, currently I'm logged in as system administrator, and this is what it captured. So, and the date and the time that the urgency sets to low. Okay. Now, if at some point, and this happened because the creation conditions, which are here, which is that the urgency is 3, which is low, were met. So we say if the creation conditions exist, then if a previous metric existed, which didn't, if a previous metric did not exist, which is the truth, then we started the metric. And this is the function that actually generates a metric as it does out of the box. And in case there was a metric, then we would have updated it. So, and now if we go back to our incident, and if we change now the urgency from low to high, we need to provide a work node to perform an update. The moment we save it, we'll have to wait a bit. You can see here that the metric instance record has been updated. The calculation is complete. We captured the date and time that it actually changed time. And we know that the user was the system administrator that did it because it got updated, because a different user might actually update the urgency from low to high. And yeah, then the only thing you need to do based on this is to your reporting or your performance analytic configuration needs to be defined on and filtered only on records that have calculation complete equals true. Okay, because these are the only cases where the urgency moved from low to high. If the calculation is not complete, that means that the urgency went to low, but then it never went to high or to medium. It might have been resolved the incident like that. And that's why it's like that. Now I see a question about the script. I can share the script with you right after the call. I will paste it in Zoom so that you can have it. Now, the close conditions is what we just seen so that you can see it. Of course, okay, this is pretty, the logic is simple. I understand if you're not technical, you might have a few issues understanding, but all you have to do when you want to capture duration between those two states from one to another is just change here your conditions. If you're not comfortable with scripting, then I suppose your system administrator or your partner, if you're using a partner in your company, will be able to help you. But this is not considered, well, this is an implementation, right? So it's something that you have to create based on your requirements. And at the same time, this is something that needs to be tested in a non-production instance before you move it to your production so that you won't cause problems to your configuration, because this is based on an out-of-the-box instance. You might have done some changes in your instance, so it's always good to test it. Okay, so do we have any questions for the metric so far? Before I move. Yes, Wei, it will only work on the, yeah, Wei, the way, okay, the way metrics work is based on current states, right? So the way, okay, how metrics work is they're using a business rule on the task table, which is being fired every time we run an update, an insert, or a delete on the instance. So, and what it does, it creates an array of all the fields that their values changed, and that is triggering an event to calculate all the required metrics. So this is the reason why it doesn't work historically. Okay, this is how metrics work. From the day that you configure them, they start working from that day onwards. Okay, the way to create, okay, the question is what if we need to create instances from the past? Do we need another solution? Yes, of course, you need another solution. That is a bit more tricky, and usually a partner is able to do that. And that would require you to go through your audit table and create metrics, but that's not something that we would advise, because audit is really big table and it's not easy to query. It depends on the use case, so it has to be very well investigated and defined before you actually perform something like that. So yes, it can be done, but it's not that easy to be done. So you need to have quite a lot of knowledge and understanding of the platform, how to do it. The metric instance table keeps the values as they are from the moment you defined your metric. So if you create a metric today way, it will not capture the changes that were done a month or a day ago. So you will be creating a metric record for each incident, regardless of the condition low to high actually happening. What do you refer to, Ryan? I don't think I completely understand your comment.
Right. Well, I think in this case, that's not the case, right? This will only create a metric record when you do go from low to high. Other metrics like duration metrics are captured for every state change, but this one only writes a record when this event happens.
Yeah. As you can see, we're checking the conditions of the metric, which is the condition to create the metric only if the urgency is low. If it's not low, it will not create a metric. Okay, Ryan? In the rest? Okay, perfect. Okay, that was the first part that I wanted to demonstrate. And the second part is something that was requested almost, I think, 2 or 3 sessions ago, but I didn't have too much time to go through them. And the reason was that it's a bit technical as well, but since there was a request, I thought to give you just a few examples so that you can understand what you do. So while we were viewing dashboards and the different types of widgets that you can add on a dashboard, we mentioned multiple times about content blocks and how you can use content blocks as widgets in your dashboard so that you can display some content or provide some functionality to your end users. This is also functionality that requires a bit of technical knowledge, a bit of HTML and a bit of JavaScript as well, and ServiceNow knowledge, of course, and our APIs. So what I prepared is this simple dashboard. Okay, this is our dashboards, and these are all different content blocks. One of the requests was how can we have colorful text, and this is why you see all these different versions of colorful text, although it doesn't really, well, it depends on the use case, but usually colors take the attention of the user to that color text, and they actually miss the most important information, which is usually the widgets or the reports on it. So this is something that you need to keep in mind when you add colors. Well, try not to take all the attention of the end user to that instead of looking at the dashboard, because the main reason of the dashboard is the information that you can understand and the analysis you can do on your widgets. Okay, so a couple of so the first one, as you can see here, it says hello admin. This is not hard-coded text, trust me. If I log in as Fred Laddie, for example, and I navigate to the same dashboard and I go to content blocks, it will give my name. Okay, so it has nothing, it's not hard-coded, it's actually a calculated value based on the logged in user. So let me go back to my dashboard as I'm here. So how this was done, it's pretty simple. You create a dynamic content block, okay, you give a name of the content block, and then, well, you need to know a bit of JavaScript. So here I pick up the username using the glide session and the user display name, and then with simple HTML, I just print these 2 values, the name and the full name. It's that simple. Of course, the styling can be done here with HTML, and this is the result. So of course you can add colors again, but I would personally not recommend it. I don't think it's recommended to use too many colors. The next one was another request that was asked. So how can I navigate to a different dashboard? So if, as you can see here, I have 2 different content blocks. One that opens the dashboard on the same tab as we're viewing now, and another one that it opens in a new browser tab. So when I click on this, as you can see, it will navigate to the office hours dashboard. And if I move back to the content block, if you click on the one that opens in a new tab, as you can see, I've been navigated new tab, and then I went to the same URL. Okay, how this is done, it's also pretty simple because our dynamic content block gives you this option. So as you can see, it's a text, and then we have a link here. So you specify here the link that you want to navigate to, and then you can say that if the target is on the same window or on another window. So the only difference between this content block and the other one is just that the URL in the second one says open my dashboard in a new tab. Of course, keep in mind this, while navigating to a new tab, you don't want your end users to have multiple tabs open, because then they get lost. They don't know what they've done, and because per user session on one browser, there is only one transaction that can run. They can click something on one tab and then expect to go to another tab and continue working, but that would not be the case. They'll have to wait until their transaction completes. So, and well, the rest is just static HTML, and then which is just text, and colorful text, which was a request. Wei asked, how did I, well, there were more questions. When do you think the safe content pack for PA will be available? I
believe that's the Agile content pack. I don't think that exists today. I'm checking to see if that is scheduled, if we have that scheduled.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm not sure.
But actually, this is David. Hi. So the content packs for Agile or Safe, they are being built, but they will be delivered, and that's currently something that's still, let's say, under wraps through the store, which means this is great benefit because it means that they are not tied to the release schedule. They can be created and released, let's say, whenever they are finished. So this means that currently what's in plan, but you can't really, there might be changes in the roadmap. Currently in plan, in this summer, there should be a content pack, at least for Agile, potentially also for Safe.
Okay, thank you very much, David. Okay, the next question was what kind of roles? I think we mentioned it the last time. It was content admin. Let me find it. Block admin. Content admin. This is the role that is required so that you can create. Yes, you will require an additional role, Brian, for that. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Wei. Wei asked a question, how did I navigate back from the dashboard? So what I did, well, personally, I prefer navigating through, well, the dashboard options that we provided and we enhanced in the latest releases so that you can easily navigate to a different dashboard quickly without having to click URLs. Keep in mind that you never know where your end user navigated to this dashboard page. So giving content blocks for back buttons is not suggested. So the only reason why I demonstrated that is because there were many requests. So try to avoid having that, because you can always navigate, as you can see here, the dashboard overview, which is more or less the same, well, a smaller and more compact version of it exists here in the drop-down that you have, so that you can select either per group and you can search directly in all the dashboards that you have access to. Okay, great. I don't think I missed any questions so far. Are there any other questions related not only to what I just presented, in general about performance analytics and reporting?
Well, Isaac, there was 5-6 days ago, there was a question on the community also related to metrics, or at least not to metric, but to cycle time. And you know that I've been busy with that a little bit last week. It's on the community. I'm going to reply. It was brought to me attention by John Ashby. And essentially, it was all about what you just showed, but really the basics, right? It basically said, hey, we want cycle time, and cycle time is nothing more than essentially from a process, let's say incident, take a certain, when an incident reaches a certain state, and until it exits a certain state. So let's say that it says work in progress till, let's say, resolved. That is the cycle time. And they wanted to capture that information to report on it. And they were asking, hey, is this something that we could do in reporting, or is this something that we could do better in performance analytics? Well, to be truthful, the answer is, if you want to do it the easy way and not too much configuration, then the easy way is performance analytics, and you can add a little bit more, let's say, advanced intelligence on top of that. And the only thing that you would need to do is start capturing the incident states, and I think that was the first metric that Isaac showed you today. And it was basically just making sure that it's activated and that it's on, and that it's capturing those state changes for incident or any other process that you may have in your environments. And once you've done that, and essentially the only thing that you would need to do in order to be able to create the right breakdowns is to create a database view. And I don't know, Isaac, maybe you have time to show a database view if you have one, that basically combines the metric table with the process table so that you can easily create those breakdowns. And after you've done that, the only thing that you need to do is obviously create the necessary indicator sources to capture those metrics and turn them into useful information. And once you've captured the information, let's say the durations, and that goes through a script that we will capture in sort of a knowledge document to be able to share with you how to do that from A to Z. And once you've captured those durations, you can bring them to the dashboards, and basically I add, for example, for cycle time, a 30-day running average to basically even out the, for example, for Agile Scrum, where you have stories, you basically even out the weekends because there's not much work being done in the weekends. And 30-day running average is something that you readily use to basically damp out those non-working days. With reporting, obviously, you have to go custom, and it's very difficult. So in that sense, PA is ideally situated to make use of those cycle time metrics. Yeah, just wanted to fill you in there. And the information around cycle time will be coming somewhere in, I think, in the July timeframe. That's the definitive solution, and hopefully it will also see its light inside the agile and safe content packs that I just mentioned earlier as well.
Yep. Thank you very much, David. Okay, just one small thing that I forgot to mention, and thank you, David, for reminding me, is that database use. So our metric instances, they are all stored on the metric instance table, which gives you all the records without any link with your actual table. So most of our indicator sources are, you'll find them. It would be great to create them in database views. Database views out of the box we do have for incidents but in order to create new ones, you will need to be admin in the instance, okay? So I'm going to navigate and demonstrate one of the database views. As you can see, it's under system definition, database views. And incident metric. And this is an out-of-the-box database view. For the ones that are a bit comfortable with SQL commands, so more or less what you will see here is just select with multiple joins. So as you can see, there are the three tables that are defined: the metric definition, where is the definition of the metric as we created initially, where we wrote our script, the metric instance table, where the records are stored with durations, and the incident table. So if I click try on it, you will see that it contains all the records from the incident table, the metric definition table, and the metric instance, so that you can actually use it in PA, for example, to break down per category, which doesn't exist on the metric instance, for example. And usually it will be good to use this database view to generate, to use your indicator sources on. And I think there was a question about performance related to this before I move to the question from Ben. Okay, performance. You've been always told to, okay, so Jack, when you create a database view, there are a couple of things that you need to keep in mind. First of all, when you join fields, you need to make sure that those fields are indexed. And the reason why we say that is because if you join a string field with another string field, for sure it's going to be really slow. But if you use the sysid, as you can see here, which are the primary keys of the tables, then it will be fast. At the same time, you have to keep in mind that the database view usually does not contain any filter condition. Those filter conditions that you want to apply need to be either in your report or on your indicator source. And those should be also carefully, you have to select them quite carefully. Because if, for example, you create this, if you use this database view, for example, and you want to search or that the short description contains, I don't know, a specific word, that will for sure be slow because the database cannot find any indexes to make it fast, and it has to iterate through all the records in the record set. In my instance, which is a demo instance, you won't find too many records, but there are customer instances that contain billions of records on these tables. So you need to make sure that your conditions are correctly defined and the fields are indexed so that your report or your PA collection will be performant. And I think that's what you need to keep in mind before creating any database. And now I'll go back to okay, Ben. Okay, so Ben asks a question that they're preparing to convert more than 1,000 monthly indicators to a daily collection job. Monthly indicators to a daily collection job. Are there any best practices for doing this type of conversions? We will be moving this through update sets and we would like to not impact the current monthly indicators in production. Ben, I think I need to understand a bit better because you mentioned monthly indicators and you collect them daily. So what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to get a value month to date? Is that what you're trying to achieve? Because collecting daily for the previous month, the values will never change from the previous month, will they? Especially for the closed incidents, for example. So I'm not sure I understand exactly what you're trying to do. Currently, we are only collecting for previous month scores. This will allow for real-time month-to-day reporting. Okay, but that's a bit different. Okay, so there are a couple of questions there. Yeah, I think, Ben, we might need to have a call for this because I know we had calls before. So maybe it would be good to have a quick discussion on this because it's not that simple. It depends on how you implemented it because collecting daily for you, so you actually want to collect for the current month every day. That's what you want to do. Instead of going that way, the ideal scenario would be
how about, let's do it quickly here.
I'm sorry.
Okay, which one? Oh.
I'm sorry, can you please mute yourself if you're not asking?
Hey, you come here quickly.
Okay. Currently, we're only collecting. Yes, so Ben, I would suggest to send me an email and then we can arrange a call and we can go through your specific cases so that I can explain what can be done in each of the cases because I understand different indicators might require different ways to go forward. Okay, is that okay with you, Ben? Perfect. Thank you very much. And then after we have the discussion, maybe we can explain it in the next office hours, not for your use cases, but in general, what can be done based on once I understand a bit better what you're going through. Thank you. And moving now to Wei. For historical tasks, if we need cycle time from state A to B, it's better to script like summary of duration. Yes, Wei, we already mentioned that if you want historic metric instances to be created, you have to script it. If you want to create something similar to what I demonstrated today, then your script needs to be adjusted accordingly. So you have to check that the previous value was low, the next one was high. So that is the case when you need to create a metric instance. Is that lab on metrics indicator source available for us to play? I think that was something that Adam mentioned, acknowledge. It is available, so that one was answered. And then Rick says, I would like to know how I best can set up an indicator that can capture all tickets, incidents, and SRs that are active and more than 30 days. I'm measuring per month, and if a ticket is more than 30 days in January, it will brief. So running my measurement for January, it will be counted in that month, but the month after the ticket is still open. Okay. Okay, so a couple of things here. First of all, when you consider something breached, does that mean that you are using SLAs in your instance? So there are multiple questions there that, okay, so if you're using SLAs, then the breached is a checkbox field, right? So you know when it was breached. So if you collect daily, then you can do actually two things. The first one is you can collect daily, and then you can check, you can have another breakdown on the duration of that incident that is open. So you can have a bucket group that says more than 30 days, that was opened before 30 days, that means, or whatever was collected for the last 30 days. And then if you collect your breakdown metrics, you will have the result that you want. And then you will have actually a breakdown, you can see how many open incidents existed before 30 days and how many were breached or not. Well, if you consider them all breached, then they will all be breached. And for the ones that were generated during this month, then you will be able to see how many were breached or not, depending on your SLAs. So with one indicator, you can achieve both. You have to keep in mind one thing. In your indicator sources conditions, you should never, ever use state fields. You should only use date fields so that you will know when it was actually resolved. Okay, that's the only thing you have to keep in mind. Moving forward, idea open to demand closed during the past 12 months from two different task tables.
I believe that actually might be in the out-of-box content for PPM. I know I've seen that before. And if you're doing that, are you trying to get the cycle time for idea open to demand close? So with PPM, ideas become demands, become projects. I believe there's some interesting things in there that you have to look at. Are you looking at ideas that don't become demands? Are you only looking at things that did convert? When you want to do that, I believe there's a reference from on the demand record back to the idea, or from the idea to the demand. And when you look at that, doing a normal PA script for the time works out well. You should be able to calculate that either with the function field if you're only looking for those two create times, since you can dot walk to it, or in PA script you can calculate those as well if you want to see for the ideas created in, or for demands that were created in June, how long did it take, how long were they sitting in ideas. You'd be able to calculate that just like we would do incident open time.
So this is why, so the recommendation is still to use a script, right? To do the calculation?
You actually have two options. I mean, the script is fine, particularly if you're looking for things that haven't been converted. Like how long did it take to close the idea? Then a script would be fine, and you can still use score start and score end.
Yeah.
I only use PA scripts if I'm going to use score start and score end, right? So date is the only use case that I like for PA scripts. However, in this case, if you're only looking for things that, if you're only looking for closed demands and you have two dates, you can also use a glide function field, which is more efficient and can be used in reporting as well. It calculates that delta for you. So you really have two pretty reasonable options, and it depends. You got to get into the details of your use case about, are you looking for comparing to now, or is it always two fixed dates? And do you want to add a field or just do it in PA?
Is it true that if you use PA scripting, it's actually run when you run the dashboard?
No, it's done at collection time.
Oh, okay.
So if you use a PA,
okay.
So your job will take longer whenever you run a script because it's going to
Yeah.
execute for every row in your indicator source. But that's, it's a one-time hit, and
Yeah.
doing date collection on idea demand is not going to be. I would not be concerned about performance for that.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Okay.
Okay. Next question. I think it's from Dylan Clary, if I'm not wrong. I hope, yeah, I don't think I missed anything. I have a request to allow end users to add nodes to the dashboard. And our process for updating content blocks is a bit too long for the frequency they'd like to make updates. Any best practices for that use case, or is it using static content blocks the best option? Well, it depends what type of comments do you want to add on the dashboard, because you mentioned comments on the dashboard, but are the comments on the dashboard or are they on the indicator level? So I asked them to add comments.
And I think it really does depend on what you're trying to do. Where I've done something similar to this is instead of doing you do a content block that includes a knowledge base article, and I'll do one knowledge base article per dashboard or per tab or whatever makes sense for you. You can include that knowledge article, so whoever can update the knowledge article is updating the notes on the dashboard. So that if you're just trying to kind of keep some running notes on there, that works well, and you could really do it for any type of record. You can include it. It's a detailed record, I believe, is the content block type. So we looked at dynamic content and static content, but there's a detailed record. So as long as you have a record that they can update, you can show that record on the dashboard. I probably wouldn't use static content blocks for that use case.
Okay, great. Thank you, Adam. Next one is Lian. If I'm not wrong. We can add interactive filters for reports for out-of-the-box items as the last 30 days, last 12 months. How can we add the ability for the user to select specific date ranges in an interactive filter? Maybe I overlooked something. I think, Adam, you have that in the blog, if I'm not wrong. Because we'll have to create a custom interactive filter for, yeah, you'll have to create a custom interactive filter so that you will be able to specify either your custom or you want to allow your end users to specify any duration between two fields, or you can even add two interactive filters. One will add greater than and the other one lower than, but it depends exactly on the use case you are trying to solve here. I think maybe we can demonstrate in one of the next sessions how to create an interactive filter that will do that. But Adam, you wanted to say something?
Well, so the out-of-the-box date interactive filter works for last 30 days, last 12 months, all of that stuff. But yeah, but if you're going to do the range, there is a post in the community that will walk you through how you create a custom interactive filter, allowing you to do date ranges. But it definitely is there.
Okay. Ricky, I responded to your email. I remembered the question when you asked it, so I will resend that question, the answer again. So I'll make sure that it's a bit better explained if you didn't get it. Okay, I'll resend it. Great, I think we reached the bottom of the questions. Are there any other questions?
Okay. A couple more came in. All right.
Yes, we just got to. Yeah. Okay. So Dylan is asking if there are any performance issues with data collections overlapping or being run at the same time. Yeah. So Dylan, when you configure your PA and your collection jobs, it will be ideal not to have collection jobs running at the same time, especially if you run the same job twice. That can cause really a lot of problems. So it will be ideal to try not to overlap your collection jobs. I would usually Depending, well, you can execute your collection jobs and see how long it usually takes. So I usually suggest 15 minutes or 30 minutes, depending on the use case, to have a pace between the scheduled jobs that should run one after the other. Either way, all the data run with yesterday dates usually, so you shouldn't have a problem starting at, for example, at 12:30 midnight until 1:30, so that you'll run your 4 or 5 jobs there. And okay, I'm moving forward. I hope, Dylan, that answered your question. We're tracking assignment group metrics. Okay, that's good. It depends on the duration, of course. So if your collection jobs run for 20 minutes, 30 minutes is okay. So yeah, you're welcome. We're tracking assignment group metrics, and we want to report on the previous and new assignment group combinations. Example tickets that were assigned to the service desk and their new assignment group. We are considering adding a custom field to the metric instance table that will give us the previous value. Is there a better way to do this? No, theoretically, if you need to have both values in one record, that will be that is one of the ways. The other one will be the scripted version, which you should do in PA. Of course, if you want to use it in reporting, then the scripted PA collection will not give you what you need, and then you'll have to create it on your metric instance table, or you can even create your own custom table where you can capture this information. But yeah, this would be the way to move forward. Either a custom field, or if you want to create a new table where you can capture all these changes. Yes, I will resend it, Ricky. Yeah. And is it possible to create a custom widget from scratch? Could you just talk a bit? If it's too, well, theoretically, okay. So let me go to the dashboard. It's fairly simple to do it. Where is my content block? Let me close a couple of windows. Okay, as you can see here under content management, right? You can create dynamic content blocks. Okay, I'll just copy the script because I'm not going to rewrite it. You click on new. It's as every other record in the instance. Then you provide the name and the category, but for us it's general. If we want in an iframe, so you don't touch that. And then you just write here the script or what you would like to present. And it's that simple. I see you entered YT. Okay, Hugo, is that did this answer your question? Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yes, and then I see you entered YT. Yes, the reason why I entered YT, it's in one of the, well, the first time I got a training about performance analytics was the first thing that I was taught. The fastest way to get to performance analytics module is to type YT. So the filter on our menu, on our navigation, it actually searches in all the text that you write, right? So YT, as you can see, it's in analytics, and that is the fastest way to get, at least for me, and I'm used to that now. So that's why you see me keep typing YT, because it gets directly to performance analytics. So it's not something that I had to define. It's just a way that I get quickly there.
If you type performance in ServiceNow, lots of things come up.
Yeah, well. And especially if you have access, as you can see, if you're an admin, you get really a lot of responses. And depending on the order, because many of our customers, they change the order of our modules, that can change. Yeah. Sorry if I missed it. What is the advice on adding a custom field to the metric instance? Well, theoretically, it's not good to add fields on metric instance, but if there is no other way to address your requirement, I suppose it's the only way to go forward. Of course, you have to keep in mind, because the metric instance table is being updated with an asynchronous business rule. Okay, so the events are being created and they are picked up and they are being calculated on the whenever the platform has time to calculate them. So if you are trying to customize something, then you have to be careful that that field will just store a value. You won't have a calculation that can cause a delay on the instance, because imagine that you have thousands of users updating incidents every day in 1 minute, for example, and those 1,000 times, the scripts that you're going to write will have to be executed and calculated. So you have to be very careful when you customize out of the box tables. Okay, so try not to, well, the advice would be not to do it, but if it's a mandatory thing that you need to do, then be very, very careful and test it extensively before you move it to production. Okay, are there any other questions? You are not able to filter based on a record's tags, correct? I have a request to track a subset of task stories and incidents that are currently only being categorized by adding a certain tag. Wanted to confirm PA could not filter based on that before suggesting a different way to. Okay, Dylan, can you filter based on a condition? So if you go to a list, can you get these records with our condition builder?
So you should be able to filter by tag.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I wanted to verify, that
Yeah.
if you can get the result set from our condition builder, then in PA, all you have to do is just replicate that condition. So if it's possible to do one, then in PA, you can do the same. Yeah, there is nothing different. Of course, you have to keep in mind that these are collection jobs. So you have to put them, you are using PA so that you can trend on the data and you can see the results set. So on the indicator itself, not sure if that was clear before. So you mean, okay, I don't think I understand. You want to add the, sorry, Adam.
Well, I mean, I would say you don't want to do this. You definitely on the indicator source you can. You should be able to in additional conditions on the indicator, although I'm not positive about that. Definitely the indicator source. I still wouldn't do it because you are going to run into an issue potentially. If the tag isn't global, I don't know that it'll work. So if I did a personal tag, your tags can be limited to a specific user, to groups, or be global. If that tag's not global, I don't know that PA will see it. I don't know that it won't, but I don't know that it will. And certainly,
it will depend also on the user that executes the collection job, right?
Yeah. Right. Potentially. So you might run into issues with that either way. So I wouldn't like that. And you also wouldn't be able to break down on it. So while tags, it should work, it's still not a good idea. You would want to, I would want to add a field that would be a choice field, right? If this is something you're reporting on, you're putting KPIs on, you don't want it to be in tags. Tags are great for being very quick and user focused, but it's not a great strategy going forward.
Okay. We have 5 minutes left, so we have time for a couple of questions if there are any.
All right. Well, if we're not seeing any more questions, I'll talk slowly for the wrap up, and if anything comes in, we'll answer it. But thank you all for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks on July 3rd. As a reminder, this session will be posted to the YouTube playlist in the near future, along with all the other previous recordings are already there. And in the meantime, between now and the next session, please leverage the community for your questions to get input in between these sessions. Also in the community, you'll find links at the top in the performance analytics community to all the available training for PA. And I'm going to make a plug for this, that it includes the new free self-paced performance analytics essentials training, which is great. Takes a hour, 2 hours to do. For all of you, you probably don't need it, but it is awesome training for your power users. So I'd recommend taking a look at that training. Make sure you're aware of what trainings is available. There have been some new free self-paced stuff coming in that are posted there, but you should check those out and make sure you share them in your organization. They're free, they're for you. We want you to be successful, and your users, the more that your users know, the easier your life will be. So thank you again, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you very much, everyone. See you.